we've had opportunity to do that since our last town hall meeting. We've communicated and we've created space for small groups and conversations to happen, and great questions and curiosities we've been able to share in. So to kind of give you where we are in this process is, since our last town hall meeting, we have had an opportunity of 4 different small groups. Of those 4 different small group conversations, we canceled 2 of the 4 because we just didn't have very many people sign up for them. For whatever reason, it didn't work in schedules. People weren't curious. We ended up having 2 of the 4 small groups, and they were good conversations, good questions, good curiosities, a lot about timing, a lot about process and how this will look. Not a whole lot of why are we doing this. I think a lot of people understand why we're doing this. Do I look tired? Do I walk around too much? Is that the problem? Yep. All right, fair enough. I'll sit. So we've been able to have those conversations, which have been great, and I've appreciated. We've had some of our leadership team members at those meetings, and they've been able to offer some of their perspectives and thoughts about why they voted to recommend that we would disaffiliate from the United Methodist Church in this season. I've had the opportunity to call several of our members and our church family who, in fact, I've called all that I'm aware of. So if you know of someone that I don't, please let me know, that are not able to be with us because they are in Florida or Texas or out of town for the season. And many of them will not be able to return or were not planning to return by March 12th to be a part of that vote. But I wanted to reach out to them and listen to them and have a conversation with them to hear what their perspective is and answer whatever questions that they may have about this season of disaffiliation that we're in. And so I've been able to reach out to at least those that I'm aware of that are wintering in Florida or Texas or some other location. And so I've appreciated those conversations and the opportunities to talk about it. We have updated and continued to add to our resource page on our website, and that continues to grow and be a part of that. One of the things that I'll highlight on that, you can go check that out if you haven't recently, but one of the things I'll highlight on that is for our friends who are not able to be with us on the 12th because they're out of town or any other reason, we have created kind of a forum or an opportunity for them or you or anybody to share their perspective. And we would take advantage of whatever opportunity that we're allowed or able to do so to share anyone that wants to submit their perspective about what's going on in this season and how they view the disaffiliation from the United Methodist Church, whether they like it, have questions, don't like it, whatever that may be. We have created space on that resource page for anybody who wants to go and share their thoughts and share their perspective so that we can extend that and share that with others. Now, we can do that in a variety of ways. We can create a living document on our resource page that would have that information. We can share those at the day of our all-church conference on March 12th and just make sure that even though they can't be here to vote, they still have a voice in the process that our church family can hear. You see, throughout this whole process, we wanted to be as transparent as we possibly can, recognizing that there is a kind of a short timeline that we're trying to do this in. There's questions about how we can do it in such a quick fashion, but want to make sure that throughout the process, everybody has all of the information we can possibly give you. And so if there's any questions along that, certainly you can let us know. This evening, it's just an opportunity to, again, ask whatever questions of clarification or any curiosities, or share whatever comments that you may have, because other than what I have already shared with you, I don't have a lot of new information because we've just been talking about this season. The vote will happen on March 12th at 1 o'clock right here at Mount Comfort campus. They didn't really care about my kids' robotics tournament. Our district superintendent is very busy, and I recognize that. And so the vote will happen. It will happen by ballot. You can't vote by proxy. You can't vote by anybody. You have to be here to vote. And that will happen. We'll have a time. We may have a little time of worship, an explanation of what we're doing. Written ballots will be passed out, and everybody who's a professing member will receive one of those. We have sent that list off to the conference because that's what they asked us to do, a list of professing members, and obviously those who joined our church in the last 2 Sundays were included in that list. Interestingly enough, we sent a list of 750 some odd names. That may surprise you because we don't see 750 people here on Sunday morning. I don't know why that is. If they're members, you would think maybe they'd be here. But we realize that both Philadelphia and Mount Comfort's history stretch decades, 140 some odd years, and in that process, not all the lists are as up to date as possible. But what we didn't want to do is leave anyone out. And without being able to discern that on our own, the conference gets a list of 750 people. So we will take the ballots for those who are gathered and professing members on our lists. They will count them that night, that afternoon. They will count them. And we will know before we leave this space what the decision of our church is when it comes to disaffiliating. It requires a 2/3 majority. I mean, you guys can figure out math, but if we have 90 people show up, that means we need at least 60 people to vote to disaffiliate for that to pass. Some have asked, what do I think is going to happen, and is there a way for me to predict that? All I can say is that I've had really positive conversations with people, and again, they've been less about whether we should or shouldn't, and more about process and timing, and maybe what things will look like, than whether we should or we shouldn't. I will say that it's important if you're a part of this church and are able to make it, to be here. I would even say that it's important for you to be here even if you're not a professing member. Just because you can't vote does not mean this moment and this season and this decision is not important enough for you to be here. Membership is a matter of, taking some vows and standing before. But there are several people who are part of our congregation who are not professing members by the definition of the conference that are just as dedicated and just as sacrificial when it comes to serving Mount Comfort Church than any one of us. And so this is a moment for our church to gather and recognize how important of a decision this is. It isn't a time for you to say, oh, the pastor assumes it'll pass, so we'll just stay home. They don't need our vote. That's not the truth. I don't know. We have 750 people that could show up. I don't know. And a lot of those people we haven't seen in lots of years. But it's interesting when the space and the opportunity and the invitation is extended, who ends up showing and speaking in to that moment of the church, whether they were part of that moment previously or want to be of the moment the next. People have a tendency, when a moment of historical nature like this is offered, they have a tendency to show up. And so I would invite you to honor that and show up as well. And so, I'll just kind of leave it there this evening. If you have any questions or perspectives or comments, instead of setting up microphones, I'll bring you a microphone. We do this because there are people joining us virtually. And so if we have anybody virtually that would like to offer a question or a comment, we're happy to share those as we receive them in the comments of our Facebook page. And so just be aware that it's not just the people in this room, but we recognize an opportunity to extend this conversation and this meeting even to those who aren't able to be here physically. So we probably have some joining us who are down in Florida or in Texas because they can't be here. And this is how we, in this virtual season, can gather together. So hopefully I've done enough talking that if you have some questions or comments, you're ready to offer them. If you'll just raise your hand or indicate that you have a question, I'm happy to bring you a mic. Would anybody like to offer a first question or curiosity or comment? I'm also not going to force you. We just want to create space. There you are.
My question is, okay, we go ahead and vote, we pass it, we're going to...
Disaffiliate.
Yeah. How long a process is it from that day till we actually are officially...
Disaffiliated.
Yeah.
No, that's a good question. Because when the leadership team first made that vote to recommend to our congregation that we would disaffiliate, the leadership team in their minds thought, this is great, we will make this recommendation in January, and then we'll have until about May to be able to communicate and meet and discuss and pray and discern and do all of the things that we need to do. So we thought we'd have, about 5 months before we had to vote. And when we communicated that to the conference, they were like, no, that's not how it works. Because they needed 90 days after the vote so that we would have 90 days before the annual conference of our Indiana church, the Conference of Indiana. And because at that conference, they were affirm the congregational vote that happens on the 12th if we vote to disaffiliate. So we pushed that back, and they said March 12th was the last opportunity for you to do that and meet that 90-day requirement, because within that 90 days, there's a lot of lawyering that needs to take place. Deed transfer, new entity creation, all of the things that need to be in place have to happen within those 90 days, because if the things that we need to do to become a new entity and a disaffiliated church, if you will, doesn't happen, if all of those boxes aren't checked, then the vote becomes null and void. So we need the space to accomplish the things that we need to accomplish from a legal standpoint to separate or disaffiliate and become our own entity. And so they kind of worked backwards, right? To answer your question, we vote on the 12th. Annual conference happens the beginning half of June. I don't remember those dates exactly off the top of my head. And then, so that they'll affirm that. The disaffiliation fee is due by June 30th, and then we become disaffiliated effective July 1. Does that answer your question? July 1. And so from July 1 on, we would no longer be a United Methodist congregation if we would vote to disaffiliate. I will add that in the midst of all the lawyering that I spoke of, walking through this process, we have retained a lawyer to look out for the best interest of our church, and they are helping us make sure that we understand the disaffiliation agreement as it is laid out, and is creating a checklist for us to follow as a leadership team so that we're making sure that we're accomplishing all of the tasks. The lawyer will read all the documents with our best interest in mind and heart. The lawyer will help us start a new entity, establish a 501c3, make sure the deeds of all of our property transfers the way it's supposed to transfer, and help us establish in that new entity the articles of incorporation and bylaws and all of the legal stuff that needs to be done. So we do have a lawyer that is helping us walk through that process, because I don't know nothing when it comes to that stuff. And I am grateful that we have a firm that is willing to walk with us at an extraordinarily discounted rate. In fact, they're charging us a total of $500 for that rate to be able to do what they're doing in this particular season. And so for me, that's a blessing. What other questions do you have? Any others? Yeah, Judy.
Well, I know Bobby and I have talked about this, but I've been talking to some people, and they don't really understand.
Right.
If we don't do anything, what happens?
Okay, good question. If we don't disaffiliate, what happens? It's a little bit of conjecture in terms of what are the ramifications of it. On the surface, nothing, right? We just continue doing what we have been doing. We remain a United Methodist congregation, and we continue the important ministry that God has called us to do. If we vote not to disaffiliate, nothing will change from the 11th to the 13th. We will still show up here and we will worship God on March 13th, whether we disaffiliate or don't. And we will continue to transform our lives and our community and our world through the power and love of Jesus Christ. And we will continue to gather, grow, and give as his people. So we will continue the mission of the church regardless. Now, as we look up ahead, eventually, when we think about the general conference that will happen, we have not heard yet whether or not the General Conference will happen. We kind of expected to hear this week, but have not yet, if the General Conference that's scheduled for the end of August, beginning of September, will happen. If it doesn't happen, the projection or the idea is that it won't happen until 2024. Whenever that General Conference happens and a designated split and separation of our denomination is outlined and defined, we will have to do this again. We will have to have a conversation about whether or not we remain United Methodist or transition to another denomination such as the Global Methodist Church or something else. That path, although mediated and outlined now, is not defined or set in stone. And so I can't tell you what that will look like if the General Conference happens in August or if the General Conference happens in 2023 or 2024. All I can say is where we are now, but eventually, when General Conference meets, we will again have a conversation about whether or not the United Methodist Church is the best partner for us in ministry based on the information we know at that point. And so regardless, whether we deal with this now or deal with it in a year or 2 years or somewhere down the road, we will have to come back around and make a decision about what it means to be Mount Comfort Church and whether or not the United Methodist Church is still the best partner for us in ministry. Does that answer your question? Yeah, everything that we know now we've communicated. So we're basing this decision on what we know now. Anything could happen. In 2 years, if they have General Conference in 2024, they could decide that it's going to be easier. Like we could join a denomination, the Global Methodist Church, or another version of a more evangelical or traditional leaning United Methodist Church, if that's the will of our congregation, and it may not cost us anything. It may be possible. It may not be possible. It may cost us more. Those are the things we don't know based on what's in front of us. And so the leadership team's recommendation was based on, we don't know this information. This is what we do know. And based on what we do know, they felt like this is the best season to recommend disaffiliation, considering the worries of what we don't know and the volatility of the denomination. And there's financial pieces of that. There's theological pieces of that. But there's a lot going on denominationally that we just don't know exactly how everything will play out. Does that speak to that question? Okay. Any other questions that you have that you would like to lift up or comment? Yeah.
During after, say, we do disaffiliate, are we going to kind of mirror the Book of Discipline as far as it goes, as far as leadership and how that's run?
So basically, what will the governance look like post disaffiliation if we chose to do that? And that's a good question, because there are a lot of great things about how the governance is set up in the Book of Discipline. However, a lot of those things are based on the structure of local church, district, conference. So we could not follow that to the T, right? What we can do is we can take the best of those things that make sense for our church and the local congregation. And I don't imagine a whole lot of changing when it comes to the structure of a leadership team, and being able to rotate those leaders and nominate those leaders to best serve the ministries of our congregation, so that there is a structure in place that it is not the same people every year after year after year, that we get to bring in new people to be part of those conversations and lead ahead as we continue to discern who we are. It won't mirror exactly, because the structure will be very different without having a district and conference level. But a lot of the things we can continue in the Book of Discipline, and a lot of the theological elements of the Book of Discipline, the things that are foundational to the Wesleyan movement and the Methodist Church, are very good and very strong about who we are and what we believe. And so some of those pieces can easily carry over to the foundation of who we will be in this next season. The governance will be part of those bylaws that we have to develop, and we'll have some help and some examples as how other churches have done that, so that we can kind of look at what's going to be in the best interest of our church long term. We're not thinking just about what's going to help next week or next year. We want to think about what's going to happen next 3 years, 5 years, and 20 years. Because although this is a season that we're considering and discerning disaffiliation, in many ways it is a season that we are pioneering what is next for the next generation of Mount Comfort Church. I do not expect Mount Comfort Church to end with us. I expect generations upon generations, just like we stand upon now, the generations that brought us to this point, that we are preparing and planning for the generations to come that will continue the important mission of transforming lives and community and world through the power and love of Jesus Christ. Does that answer that question? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
You think so? Any follow-up question for clarification?
Not for me.
Okay. There will be a lot of conversation if we choose to disaffiliate on the 12th. That'll be a lot of church conversation as we create those bylaws and pray through and discern through. And all of that information will be communicated before it is approved or defined. So we want our church to be involved in the process of who we're becoming, not just vote and then whatever. Any other questions or comments that you may have? Yeah, Mark. One of our newest members, so is Pat. Don't clap for your dad. That's just weird. Just kidding.
No one would clap for you.
No, he wouldn't.
I just had a general question as to how this decision and how this movement with the Methodist Church is kind of affecting a lot of other local areas. Is the district and the area kind of dealing with several congregations thinking about this?
Yeah. So how are other congregations, our district and the conference, what's going on in the midst of them? I have had several conversations because of the rules that currently exist. Let me start with this. There are a lot of conversations that if it was a matter of just simply saying yes or no, would find themselves disaffiliating in this season. There are several congregations that are in that, but it's not that simple, right? It's trying to understand the systems of the General Conference that we're trying to figure out what the next season would look like, the financial responsibility. There are the vast majority of congregations wrestling with this, and a lot of them are simply in a position where they have to wait. They have to wait because maybe their congregation isn't at a point where they're ready to make a decision when it comes to the next season. They have to wait because maybe they're not financially in a place to be able to make a decision in this season when it comes to disaffiliating or not. I do know that in the large scheme of the conference in the district, the conference is continuing to financially be in difficult positions. We find ourselves, it used to be, when the version of our conference happened, we had 10 districts, I think, 9 or 10. And that meant we had 10 district superintendents or 9 district superintendents throughout the state. And I think 3 district superintendents are now serving 2 districts. Our district superintendent serves 2 districts. She serves the central and the west. So she goes all the way over to, that would be Illinois. So she's got Greenfield, kind of the middle of the state, from Greenfield all the way to Illinois, and the United Methodist congregations in that swath. And one of the reasons why the conference has to make those decisions is because they don't know or are not in the financial position to just replace our district superintendents, because there's so much up in the air. For congregations, there's so much in the air, but not everyone, like I said, is in the position financially or as a congregation to make a decision now. although they recognize they will eventually have to, either on their own or will be told one direction or another. Our district, I can't tell you if there are other churches in our district. We have had at least 2 other churches disaffiliate in the last couple years. I cannot tell you how many are currently discerning disaffiliation in the same season or the same place that we are. I'm not privy to that information, and I doubt our district superintendent would just be like, here, go have a conversation. I don't think that's something they would offer up. The pastors that I've spoken to are kind of in the same place that we're at, but as I've described, either not financially in a position, waiting to see if General Conference happens this year. Some of them are waiting, so if General Conference doesn't happen this year, they may move forward with disaffiliation because the 2-year down the road option doesn't sit well with their spirits. But they won't be able to disaffiliate this year, even if they had everything together now, because there's just not enough time to do that. And that may be why they're prolonging General Conference announcement. I don't know. But there's lots of these things in place. So it affects every congregation because we know that over the course of the next 2 years, whether it's now or 2 years down the road, every United Methodist congregation is going to be dealing with this. Mount Comfort Church, in many ways, by the grace of God and the generosity of many, are in a position to deal with it now and not have to wait to get lumped up into the swath of things that will denominationally happen. We have the opportunity and the space to do so now. I don't know if that answers your question or not. I don't know every church's position. Other questions that you may have? Doug, let me get this to you. What do you got?
If we,
You know that microphone works when it's closer to you.
oh, it does? No. No.
Oh, okay. He's going to be the microphone guy. I'm going to go back to the front. But that doesn't mean keep talking or start talking.
If we disaffiliate with the Methodist Church,
Yeah.
how long do we have to affiliate with something else, or will we be like an independent Baptist church, or?
We won't be like an independent Baptist church.
No, see, you're putting words in my mouth.
You put those words in your own mouth.
I have enough trouble getting my words out now. But
So your question is, what does the next affiliation look like?
has the committee talked about what they would like to see us do?
Right.
Or be independent?
Yeah. So the conversation around the leadership team has been, we believe it is best served to be a part of something bigger than yourself. So it is best served to affiliate in one way or another with a network, a denomination, a fellowship. Friends, especially those who have been part of the United Methodist Church all of their life, there are literally hundreds of options, even beyond the main denominations, on fellowships and affiliations. The main traditional leaning denomination that may emerge out of the United Methodist Church is going to be the Global Methodist Church. That's what they assume that will be. It is not a thing yet, but it is primed to become a thing. That could be where we align ourselves with or affiliate ourselves with. So that's an option. But there are several options. All I can say right now is that the leadership team believes that it is a disservice to any local congregation to not be a part of something bigger than themselves. Much like I would suggest any Christ be affiliated with a church. Can you go on it alone? Absolutely. But there are a lot of things that make it really difficult and challenging to do so. Affiliating provides accountability, collective resources, and works together. The impact that we can have on missions and church planting and so on and so forth is greater when we work in a collection. And so I think the leadership team definitely wants to see us in an affiliation, Global Methodist Church or some other denomination or connection or network or whatever you want to call it, so that we aren't just an island, but are working with others that are like-minded and like-hearted for what it means to live out the mission of the church God has given us. Timing-wise, that's not going to be something that starts July 1. If we vote to disaffiliate, then we'll start having more of those conversations and begin researching and praying and discerning and thinking through. I would hope that we could find the next best option for us to affiliate by 2023. I guess that would be my kind of internal goal, is to not be an island on our own past this year. Because I think that we need to do diligence of understanding who we are and what's out there in the whole to best connect with what God is calling us into next. Does that answer that question? You got a follow-up? Okay.
What happens if, get closer. What happens if, how long do we have to affiliate with another church? What happens if the conference, I can't express my words, but if the conference doesn't vote this year and doesn't vote next year, we don't know what they're going to do.
It doesn't matter what they're going to do. So we have an infinite amount of time, right? If Mount Comfort Church decided to disaffiliate, and we decided before we're going to affiliate with any other thing, we want to see what's going to happen with the United Methodist Church, Global Methodist Church, or whatever, we can wait and just see what's going to happen before we would align. That doesn't mean we don't research, pray through, discern through other options that the world may offer, but we don't have to be on any particular timeline. And we don't need to affiliate in a situation that we're going to plant our flag here and this is for whomever we will be. There's a lot of options of networking that can fill a gap and continue to be a network even if we would affiliate with a defined denomination. Like one of the large churches, Carl, remind me, was it Georgia, the church that went to Free Methodist? Yeah, one of the large churches in Georgia that disaffiliated went right into the Free Methodist denomination. So they didn't have a season of nothing. They went from one to the other right away. But we have that option to be able to pray through and discern through as we think through who we are and look and understand what's around us to be able to connect. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay, good. But
What happens if the Methodist organization votes the way we would like to see them vote, but if we don't?
it doesn't matter if the United Methodist Church breaks and there's a UMC and a Global Methodist Church, we can align ourselves with the Global Methodist Church, even if we've disaffiliated. It doesn't matter.
Can we go back?
We can align ourselves, yes. There's no going back, so to speak, right? So there's a matter of, there will be a split, whether it's this year or 2 years or 8 years, whenever there will be a split. I can tell you that for almost 100% sure. I just kind of hedge my bet just a little bit. But we as a congregation, if we choose to disaffiliate, and for lack of better terms, becomes a free agent, right? We can choose based on what is out there, what is the best for our congregation to live out the mission and vision God has given us. And in that discernment season, if the Global Methodist Church becomes an organization and a denomination, we could choose to align ourselves with the Global Methodist Church. We could choose to align ourselves with the Free Methodist Church. We could choose to align ourselves to some other network or connection or fellowship based on what is God leading us as a congregation. What I want you to hear me say is that decision will not rest solely in the leadership team's hands. That is going to be a congregational decision. It won't be the 15 people that sit around that table once a month to talk about the business of the church. They may bring recommendations based on their research and their prayer, but the congregation, as a disaffiliated church, will make a decision if we choose to affiliate at any point. What other questions do you have? Yeah, David. I think I can speak loud enough. I'll repeat it so our friends online can hear it.
My concern is, do we want to stay with the Methodist Church because, we've talked about this at the breakfast and stuff like that. They take so long to make a decision on anything.
So is that a reason to stay with them? Indecisiveness? The question was, I don't know what the question is. Say it better.
Do we want to stay with the Methodist Church for the simple fact, okay, the global, if we go to the global, how do we know the people in that is going to go over there and they're going to be just like they were before? They take forever to make a decision on anything.
Right. So I think that's where our discernment comes into play. Right now, what's before us is whether or not we believe the United Methodist Church as exists today is the best partner for us. The next season is undefined, and the options, I just sounded a little British, the options are multitude, right? We have so many options out there. We know that if things happen within the United Methodist Church, the Global Methodist Church may be an option down the road. And so that will be part of the conversation along with a multitude of others. But the question before us now is the United Methodist Church the best partner for Mount Comfort Church to live out its mission and its vision? And your leadership team's recommendation is no. Any other questions, concerns, curiosities? Yes, Christy.
I was thinking about what he said, and I think maybe his question is, because this vote has not yet taken place, if we disaffiliate now, but then are happy with whichever way the vote goes, can we change our mind and say, just kidding, we're not leaving? I think that's kind of what he had in mind. But I think that as a member of the leadership team, and correct me, any of you, if I'm wrong, but we are just really wanting to not break stride, just to keep moving forward. And it's not based on just one issue for us. We just overall don't feel like the big Methodist Church is a great partner at this time. So we're not really focused on just one topic or one issue on a vote. It is more than that for us. So I think that's maybe kind of what he was asking. So we're not just going into it blindly and wondering what the vote might be. I think most of us, or most people, would agree on what they think the vote is going to be. But we really didn't spend tons of time on that. We really just wanted to just know how our congregation could move forward and keep doing the work that we feel God has laid out for us. And yes, the vote is super important, but I don't think it's the most important thing. And that issue is important, but not the issue. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And I think it boils down to not one issue outside of that foundational question that we have offered throughout this process. And that's, is the United Methodist Church the best partner for us to live out the mission and vision God has given us? And what we know, all the information we know about procedure, about theology, about position, about the next couple years, conferences, so on and so forth, the state of the denomination and conference and district, based on all of that information, the leadership team said, no, right now, we believe that the United Methodist Church will not be the best partner for us to live out our mission and vision. And so the recommendation to disaffiliate was recognizing that we do not foresee in the future that changing from the position of the United Methodist Church. And so because the space and the opportunity is there and the resources are achievable, the leadership team said this is a season in which we can be proactive into what may be down the road and make a decision for the church versus having to be reactive to a decision that no one in this room or a part of this church has a voice or vote in. And so that proactive decision is to disaffiliate now and then figure out how God is calling us to continue. And as Christy said, not break stride, because I think God is doing good things in the midst of Mount Comfort Church. I think we see a renewed enthusiasm, a call into missions and outreach, doors that are opening up by God and community partnerships, a desire to serve and transform lives. I am excited by what God is doing in the midst of our church. And I want that to continue. And all of those things considered, that is what brought the recommendation of the leadership team. Any others that you may have? I'm almost done begging you for them. Because we wanted to create the space. Thank her for saying for you. Matt, I saw your hand up.
Well, we're not very, we're close.
Matt, what would you like to offer?
My name's Matt. I've met some of you, not all of you. But the only thing I want to say, it's not a question, just a comment that I want to make. I'm not able to vote. I wish I was able to vote. I did not go through the process in time. So I'm one of those that he talked about earlier. That being said, I just want to mention that the leadership team, I think, has done an awesome. I went to one of the small groups, one of the two. I didn't make it to the first one, scheduling conflicts, but I think the leadership team is spot on. And I don't want to say I would vote one way or the other. Doesn't matter to me. I don't want to talk about voting. I just want to talk about giving you guys, I guess, props that I think they're doing the right thing. They're getting out in front and they're being proactive. And I think they've done a good job at being open with communication and the opportunities to let us do what we're doing tonight. So thank you.
All right, thank you, man. Appreciate that. Others, I mean, that's a good one to close on. I'm good with that. The leadership team was unanimous in their recommendation, yes. Everyone was on the same page. There is more opportunity, and even though we do not have another small group scheduled and we do not have another town hall scheduled between now and the 12th, don't feel like there's not an opportunity to ask a question, have conversation, dialogue. I and the leadership team is available to you. The leadership team emails are on the resource page. You can go to a website. You can email any of the leadership team members you would like to. You can submit a question through that website, and we'll respond to it as fast as we possibly can. You can pick up the phone and call me, which is a weird thing to do in today's age, but you can still do that. If you don't feel like talking, you can text me, and I'm happy to give you my phone number. You can text my wife. She may be less happy to discuss with it, but she'd be happy to hear from you regardless. Don't feel like over the next 10 days, we're done talking. There is opportunity to ask questions and have dialogue and conversation, and for me, that's what's important. I don't know what there is. I didn't know what to expect in terms of this evening. I appreciate the questions and the comments that were offered because I didn't know. I mean, where people are. When I talk to somebody, I don't ask you, how are you going to vote? That's not what my heart is right now. My heart is we want everybody to have as much information as they possibly can to know why the leadership team recommended. And if you have specific questions for me or the team, great. I will reiterate that my desire and my family's desire is to remain a part of Mount Comfort Church for the foreseeable future. I have kids that'll be graduating. Noah's a senior next year. Abby is a 5th grader, so she's got a long way to go and an even longer way for her mother and I to survive it. My parents, my mom's left, so I can say this, they're getting older. we love being close to them. We love being in the same neighborhood, even when they call to just simply change a light bulb. I don't want to leave that in this season of my parents' life because I value the time I have with them. I love the community that we live in, and I'm excited about what God's doing at Mount Comfort Church. We are committed to being here, and disaffiliating means that I would turn in my credentials as a United Methodist pastor, and Crystal and I are recognizing that there is some risk to that, but recognizing that that is an important thing, that is a step and leap of faith that we're willing to do, trusting that God will take care of it. To be honest, one of the conversations that we've had is waiting until the denomination deals with an issue centering around human sexuality would be harder on our family and our kids in the schools as that hits media and things like that, because they're gonna deal with that. And we would rather that not to be an issue. We would rather continue to focus on mission and vision and focused on what God is calling us to do, and not on an emphasis on sin, because no one wins with that. If we stay, I'll still stay here as long as the district and the conference allow me to, if we don't disaffiliate. I mean, if we stay United Methodist, the district and the conference, that decision is up to them as to where I serve and how I serve. So as much as I believe in the congregation and the community that we serve, Crystal and I are dedicated to that as well. And we want to be a part of this and you for the foreseeable future, because I believe that's what God's inviting us to do and calling us to do. But I would love to close in prayer, and we will give it to God and go forth. Father, on this Ash Wednesday, I thank you for your gift of grace, for the journey that we are embarking, and an opportunity to be the church. There will be things that surprise us in this season. There will be things that cause us to struggle. There are things that will amaze us. And yet, God, we recognize that every step of the way, you are here in our midst, and we want to be there. So, God, I pray that we allow ourselves the space to be present in this Lenten season and journey towards Easter, so that Easter is an opportunity of celebration, that we have done the hard spiritual work to get to that point of recognizing, celebrating, and shouting from the rooftops the resurrection of your Son, Jesus Christ. This is the season for our church of discernment, to figure out where and how you are calling us to best live into the mission and vision that you have invited us to do. God, I pray that you give us wisdom. I pray, God, that you give us strength and patience so that we may move forward, courageous and bold in the mission you have set before us. Guide us, God. Give us wisdom. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. All right, friends, thank you so much. Hope you have a fantastic evening.